Welcome everybody to the Alteryx ACE Server Trio panel discussion on the path to growing your platform effectively. It's brought to you by the three ACEs here at Data Meeting, the Global Partner of the Year with Alteryx last year. As way of an agenda on the topics we're going to be covering, we have launched a recent series called Data Meeting, Data in the Wild on LinkedIn and YouTube. We've been asking for questions over the last month and a half around server questions, hurdles, hoops that customers had to jump over through, and been compiling those for the past month and a half. Topics we'll be discussing is the Alteryx server maintenance best practices, how to scale your server for your team or enterprise, as well as gallery APIs and beyond. Quick introduction of the panel and myself. I'll be the MC. Over 7 years experience here in the data analytics space, working for companies like Alteryx, MongoDB, and Logi Analytics. I head up the sales and enablement side at Data Meeting. But to the more important people on this panel, let's talk about Andrew Kim, one of the best worldwide. He's been using Alteryx for roughly 12 years, extreme knowledge of the platform. I always joke around and say, if he can't answer it, I'm not sure who can. Let's move on to Carlos Teixeira. Carlos is looked at as the Brazilian server guru, handles a lot of our top clients for server maintenance, server upgrades, enhancements, and scaling. He's also known for teaching users about the Alteryx platform in multiple languages. And then you have Thales Donizetti, who was the first Alteryx ACE in South America. He's the jack of all trades that gets pulled into a lot of our top clients across the board with any and all questions, and has dove headfirst into work with Analytics Hub when it first got launched. So now as we kick things off, let's jump right into the questions. The first category we're going to go into is Alteryx maintenance. So Carlos, let's jump to you first. Question from William out of Ohio. He said, what are some of the best resources for maintaining our Alteryx server?
Good question, Josh. Thank you. I have been using Lumbermill a lot of lately, and the Alteryx server usage report and other ACEs have also created the tools to help. With the Alteryx user report, you have a quick analysis on the integrity of your environments, and you can easily identify amongst other things. And when you have the greatest demand for execution. Today, we also use some tools created by other ACEs that streamline the search for information, such as what are the characteristics available in the environments, list of user, list collections, workflows, list data users, download the workflows. All this information is very important to know. And if you need to quickly do some things in the Alteryx server.
Great, thanks for that. Let me follow up, Carlos, with the next question from Lisa out of New York. How should I prepare for my next upgrade?
Being aware of how they are doing with the new versions is always important, and being attentive to all the documents that are made available by Alteryx. Once you have this information in hand, the first action would be to check if your environment fits all of them, both to minimize the risk of something is wrong and to check if your environment fits this version. Whenever possible, the ideal is to do a previous installation in your environment to try to discover possible errors. Data Meeting provides this for us, and we always try to pre-install the version to will be installed. I believe the most important, attention to the Python and R packages installed on the machine is also important to get it.
Okay, perfect. Let me jump over to your Brazilian counterpart there, Thales. Ken asked us the quick question on how frequently should we upgrade in the server?
Well, Josh, thanks for the question. The short answer is it depends. And that's because it depends on what you need and what features you're looking for when you're looking at new versions, right? So customers usually do upgrades twice a year, but that's because upgrades require effort and resources because you need to stop your environment and create backups and other tasks that are related to an upgrade. But I would say it really depends on what you're looking for in terms of features of the product, and how much time do you have to stop your environment and make your upgrade.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Next question here from Donna comes in and is asking, what is the worst thing that can happen to your server and how could you prevent it? And Carlos, we'll jump back up to you.
Yeah, to fall. But I think that you already know. Whenever a server goes down, it is a problem. And depending on which environment it's happened, the problem can be even bigger. I think the most important thing is to be aware of your server performance every day. Memory usage, CPU, hard drive, how many workflows are in error, or which ones are taking too long to run on the server. This can be the indication of possible problems coming. Other that important point is MongoDB failure. This can be prevented by backup before you upgrade the server and the routine is backup. If you have these points mapped, problem solved can be very happy, very quick.
Okay. Awesome. Well, let me let me ask a real quick question here to wrap up this section on server maintenance. Italius, Steve asks the question, how can I check what Python and R libraries are installed on my server easily?
Well, that's a really common question, Steve. But it's right now we have workflows. Data Meaning offers workflows that you can easily check Python and R packages using the Python tool and the R tool. So you don't have to open the Python and the R environment and run scripts over there, especially for those people who are not used to do that. So to make the server admin life easier, we do have these workflows that can be run in a second, and you can track and manage your libraries whenever you want.
Perfect. Awesome. Now for a quick break here as we jump over. The next section is going to be on scaling. But before we jump into that, Andrew, quick question as I'm looking at the videos here. I've got Carlos sitting there. I've got Talia sitting there. And they both got the periodic table of the Alteryx tools sitting behind them. But you're considered the Alteryx ACE guru here. So what's going on? Why don't you have the periodic table?
I think it's because my wife has definitely heard enough of Alteryx over the years. So the last thing she wanted to see is it kind of posted up there as wallpaper. But believe it or not, I actually have still from one of the originals from Inspire 2017. I have it sitting here on my desk. So I still hold my own, and I refer to that probably almost every other day with a customer on the call, and I'm telling them like, look, these are the tools that you want. This is the multi-threading, right? So it's really exciting.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that entertaining gap filler, we'll call it. All right, let's jump over to scaling real quick. I've got a question here from Ashley. And Andrew, we'll let you start answering some questions around scaling. What are some of the largest deployments of server you guys have worked with?
Oh, wow. We've definitely done quite a few in the hundreds of nodes, as crazy as that sounds. And that's literally just in the production environment. So as we kind of talk about scaling Alteryx, you can scale from a single node to hundreds of nodes without a problem. And as we kind of discuss that, one of the best examples of this that I always refer to is think of the Alteryx public gallery. There's all those tools available for you. They don't have as many scheduled runs, obviously, but there's plenty of tools and users there. So the possibilities for you are endless. You just want to make sure you have the right support in place to make that happen.
Perfect. So let's go kind of next steps here. Rebecca asked an easy question, we'll call it. If I plan on scaling my team to a high availability environment, but I only have one server today, what advice would you give me for preparing our environment? Andrew?
So Rebecca, I think we have a job opportunity here for you at Data Meaning to start. But as we kind of talk about these different aspects, right, with server, one of the most critical components that we need to be aware of in terms of high availability for requirements is separating out to have a user managed MongoDB. And then at that point, we can integrate the passive controllers. We can do a load balancer, which will ensure that we have a hardened environment to manage all of the users that are interacting with the Alteryx gallery and providing web requests. So that's really the critical key. The other aspect in terms of scaling that doesn't require that separation out is obviously adding additional workers to the environment. And when we look at scaling in these two different ways, the exciting component of this is Alteryx really does unlock that potential. And the key is to start utilizing it and getting the workflows off your desktop and getting them automated in an app form so more users can work with you.
Okay, great. Thanks for the in-depth knowledge transfer there. So let's move on. I got a question around the AMP engine. Ron over here, he says, how can I deploy the AMP engine in my environment? And what are some things I should be aware of when deploying it? Andrew, I'll let this be the last question before we jump to somebody else.
Oh man, Ron, it sounds like you're looking to step on the gas a little bit and maybe use those resources a little faster. So that's pretty simple to get set up on the server, especially if you're on one of the newer versions. If you go through the server configuration, which check out our Inspire Buzz, we'll have a screenshot of that so you can see where it's located. You can check that box, which will allow users to access it. And then from there, when they're uploading their workflows in Designer, you can check the box to allow access and running with the AMP engine. Now, as we're going through this, my recommendation is definitely to turn on some performance profiling and check to make sure everything is working smoothly with your workflow. And then, as Carlos had mentioned before, in regards to monitoring the server, you'll want to make sure that you're adjusting your resources accordingly, especially if you're going to switch from heavier memory and disk usage to more intense processes with that multi-threading for CPU.
Perfect. All right, let's let Talius jump in here real quick. There's been talk about shifts going on, and Laura asked this question around the back end side of things. So, Talius, can you talk real quick around the planned shift or the talk there has been around MongoDB to Postgres and how that will, if at all, impact scaling? And then what other benefits do you foresee that having?
That's a really good question. If we look at how Alteryx is treating other projects, we can see that Alteryx Connect, for example, right now has an optional Postgres backend. Alteryx Analytics Hub is all based in Postgres. So I really think that server is going to that route as well, but we don't have a planned date, specific planned date for that. What I can say is Mongo is a non-relational database and Postgres is a relational database. So you could benefit of that because of the easy of use of Postgres. And of course, when we talk about scaling, I don't think that would impact at all any other scaling activities that we have in our platform right now.
Gotcha. Okay, well, thanks so much for that, Talius. Now, quick interjection as we jump over. Next section is going to be on APIs, but let me ask a quick question, Talius. What's the most creative thing that you have done with Alteryx outside of work?
Well, Josh, I usually do some crazy things with Alteryx, but one thing that I remember right now is connecting to the Twitter API and checking how people were feeling about a soccer player, really famous soccer player called Neymar. I think some people in the call should know about that. And what I did is I created a workflow that would measure the sentiment analysis on that player using the intelligence suite tools. So I created a word cloud and created some other fun things that I could check and see if the Twitter comments were positive or negative about that player at that moment.
Gotcha. Nice, nice. And let me ask that quick question to you too, Carlos. What's the most creative thing you've done with Alteryx outside of work?
Yeah, good question. I built a workflow in Alteryx using APIs to get the financial information for a financial application that I use on my phone and create one dashboard with several different views of the reports that were made available by the app. So I managed to have a more manager view of my income and expenses, and it was pretty cool for me.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, it's always interesting hearing people and what they're doing with Alteryx outside of work. We all know the standard use cases, and department use cases always like to see what people are doing on a personal level. So let's jump into the API section and do more of a rapid fire approach here. We've got Eric with the first API question, and Carlos, I'll let you take this. What is the easiest way to get started with the Gallery API?
Yeah, I believe using. I think the main thing is to learn a little more about how APIs works. And I think the big secret is how it works. And they are important for our work in the management of the server, or often to solve some problems or to look for some information about the work done.
Perfect, perfect. Andrew, I'll let you take the next one from Amy. What is the difference between version 1 and version 2 APIs for the server?
So a lot of it's the new functionality that's being introduced. So really what you're going to see is you will actually need to use a combination of these two. And as you're trying to understand both your environment in terms of complexity, so whether that's use of analytics apps or just scheduling workflows, make sure you're examining both of them. And then even check the differences between the user portion of that as well as the admin portion, because there will be different functionality, and those sets of keys are actually different as well.
Okay, perfect. Now on Natalia's, let's let you jump into the mix. Who's this? Benjamin asked the question, do I need special permissions to use the API for a server?
Oh, Josh, I wouldn't say special permissions, but the admin of your server needs to give you permissions to access the API if you're doing subscription requests. So basically, if that option is checked yes in your profile, you can use the API, and as long as you have your API key and secret, you just would put in your application, if it's Alteryx Designer or if it's another programming language that you're using to do that, you just put those there and you would be able to use the API. So no really special permissions for that.
Okay. And then as a follow-up, Talius, Anna asked the question, are there any tool limitations for using the APIs?
Well, if you look at documentation, Josh, you can see that there are 3 interface tools that are not supported with the API. So the trees, the file browse, and the maps, those 3 interface tools are not allowed if you're using analytic apps and the API. So the rest, outside of that, the rest is you can use basically everything if you're doing API requests with Alteryx.
Perfect. And Talius, last question, since you love the APIs. Greg asked, can I only trigger workflows or can I also do apps? What about uploading files?
Well, that's also a good question, and you can do both. So either workflows or apps, it really depends on the app ID that you're calling in the gallery. Every single workflow or app has an app ID. And talking about uploading files with the V2, with the version 2 of the API, you do have the option to make to input a file for an analytic app. So you're able to upload that file and use that file in an analytic app if you want to.
Well, thanks so much. That concludes the section on APIs. I will say we're going to be doing follow-up webinars on these 3 sections about scaling, APIs, and server maintenance. So look out for follow-up emails from us on full-on webinars on each one of those subtopics. And please join us for a short survey after this concludes. And want to thank everybody for attending our panel discussion with the Alteryx ACE Trio panel that we had here. Any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and be sure to follow Data Meeting on our YouTube channel linked below, as well as our LinkedIn channel below. Thanks so much.
If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please comment below. And don't forget to subscribe to know when future videos are posted.